Okay, let's get started. So, um, as I said, we're going to explore the Greco-Roman world, which shaped the earliest Christian tradition. I do not happen to know the Pope's current status. Um, when it comes to academic study, especially when it comes to the text, um, we need to understand the political, religious, and social context of this time period because it is essential to grasping how early Christianity developed and spread. We're going to cover three major areas. We're going to cover the political and administrative structures of the Roman Empire. We're going to cover Greco-Roman religions and philosophies. And then we're going to look at the social and cultural dynamics of the first century Mediterranean world. So, when Christianity emerged in the first century, the Mediterranean world was under Roman rule. This brought a certain level of stability known as the Pax Romana, or Roman peace. But it also meant that they experienced centralized control and governance by the emperor and Roman Senate. So we see all of these territories being unified. However, it meant that they had to submit to Roman rule and Roman occupation. The Roman Empire was quite vast, covering regions from Britain uh, or Britannia, also known now as England, to North Africa, to the Middle East. So the Roman Empire was a lot larger than I think that a lot of people realize. Obviously, it maintained its control through uh, military strength, economic taxation, and of course, local governance. Um, and then these were each divided into provinces, which were governed either by the Senate or directly by the emperor, depending on their level of stability. So, some of the key points when it comes to the political structure of Rome. Rome's tolerance of local customs and religions, as long as they didn't threaten imperial authority, was quite good. So Rome tolerated um, the local peoples that it maintained rule over as long as they didn't threaten the imperial authority. The presence of client kings such as Herod the Great in Judea um, was quite popular. Um, but these kings um, ruled under the Roman oversight, so they didn't have full authority like we would think a monarchy at that time would. So this was not a um, imperial monarchy. This was more of a we'll let you be king as long as you listen to what we tell you to do. And then, of course, we see the role of Roman roads. If any of you have taken any kind of world history class, you'll know that Roman roads and infrastructure um, helped in the rapid spread of ideas, including Christianity. So, how do you guys think that Roman policies towards local religions influenced the way early Christians navigated their faith within the empire? So think about that question um, and consider that question. Put it in your notes. Hi, Peck. Hi, Rabbi. So we have to understand that the Roman Empire heavily influenced the spread of Christianity. Um, and of course, under Roman rule, things were quite different. So as long as uh, the local custom or religion didn't threaten their imperial rule, they were fairly tolerant. That sounds really good, Peck. So, just a reiteration on the discussion question, how do you think Roman policies towards local religions influenced the way early Christians navigated their faith within the empire? So, religious life in the Greco-Roman world was quite diverse. Unlike modern Western religious traditions that often emphasize exclusive belief, Roman, Greco-Roman religions were polytheistic and inclusive. Um, we see that people participated in multiple religious communities simultaneously without contradiction. So there was no pressure to believe in any one ideology. Rather, you could belong to multiple religious groups. Um, and no one would have a problem with that. So some key aspects of the Greco-Roman religious structure. Obviously, you had a state religion and emperor worship. So emperors were often venerated as divine figures, which of course created tensions within monotheistic groups like Jews and Christians. And then we have, of course, mystery religions. These included the cults of Isis, Mithras, and Dionysus, which offered personal salvation and secret invitation rites. And then, of course, we have the philosophical traditions, schools of thought like Stoicism, Epicureanism, and Platoism, which shaped uh, moral and ethical understandings of that time. So Christianity developed within this environment and borrowed certain philosophical ideas while rejecting others. And the idea of a suffering and resurrected deity, for instance, resonated quite heavily with some mystery in its monotheistic foundation.
Hello?
Hi,
Hi, I have a quick question for you if that's okay.
sure.
So, as a queer person, I'm told constantly that I'm like shoving my like rhetoric down people's throats and like have this agenda of indoctrination for children. Should I consider this indoctrination or preaching?
If it was being taught from a theological standpoint, then sure, you could assume that. But this is purely academic.
Oh,
Although
oh, so
I do
okay.
happen to be a priest.
Okay, so I actually study neuroscience, so you're academically saying that Christ and the religion is real, and so therefore it's not indoctrination.
No, what I'm saying is that we are looking into the textual context um,
Okay, so
for
you're
Christian
preaching.
scripture.
So you're preaching. But on TikTok, where it's not a religious platform, what if what if it was a queer person who was doing the same thing but for queer children? What do you think? What type of reaction do you think you would get?
I would have absolutely no problem with that.
I
So
understand.
Really quickly, Lefty. Hi, I'm a Norse pagan actually, and I am also part of the LGBTQIA. Father Mark is a good friend. What we're actually doing here is we're learning about more of the academics behind religion because many of us are actually academics of scholarship. So we learn from different outlets, different bases. Father Mark actually has no quarrels or issues with the LGBTQIA community. This is actually just a learning thing. It's not a debate zone.
Father Mark, I am so sorry. I did not know that. We just came from a live where Christians were like berating queer people, and I'm so sorry for not realizing that. I hope you have a wonderful night. I'm so sorry.
No, you're fine. I understand where that assumption comes from, and if you're still here, I was not offended by that. I totally understand where that idea comes from and why one might think that a Christian on here is uh, berating um, queer people. And in that being said, um, I know I can't speak for every Christian, but I do apologize that you have been treated that way. That is not okay. That is not something that Christianity teaches. However, you are more than welcome to be in this space. We appreciate everyone who shows up. So feel free to tag along for this lecture if you'd like and hang out.
Sorry, I wanted to pop up and help with that, Father
Oh,
Mark,
no,
because he
you're
got
fine,
the
man.
wrong idea about the live. So I thought maybe coming from a non-Christian would help her better understand that that's not what's going on here.
Yeah,
That's what I was trying to
absolutely.
get at. I'm like, I'm an atheist. I'm friends with Father Mark and I'm learning from him. Like, it's okay. But, you know, this is your platform and you are allowed to do with it as you please. It's not forcing anything down anybody's throat. It's your platform. They aren't forced to be here.
Right. Although I do understand where she's coming from.
Yeah.
And considering the backstory where she said she had just come from a live where Christians were bashing queer people, I do understand how she would uh, kind of come to that assumption.
Yeah, me too.
For sure. For sure. I mean, we've we've been in those too. Half the time it happens on Nick's life, but yeah, no.
Okay, I'll drop down and let you get back to it. I just wanted to help you out there in case she tried to make it ugly, but yeah. I'll drop back down and let you get back to it.
Yeah, sure. So, picking up where we left off, Christianity developed within this Greco Roman environment. Um, and we see that early Christian tradition borrows certain philosophical ideas and rejects others. The idea of a suffering and resurrected deity, for instance, really resonated with some of these mystery cult traditions. However, it was radically different in its monotheistic foundation. So, um, the next question I'd like you guys to ponder would be, in what ways do you see early Christian teaching both challenging and adapting to this Greco Roman religious thought? So, the goal of this lecture is to observe um, early, early Christian tradition and the uh, impact that this Greco Roman world had on Christian tradition. So, um, and of course, I encourage you to study on your own and dive a little deeper into this. And if anybody wants to know the textbook that I usually pull my lectures from, I'd be happy to send that out to people. So, in order to fully grasp how early Christianity spread, we have to consider not only the religious influences, but we have to look at the social structures within this Greco-Roman world. This was a highly stratified society, and it had a lot of sharp distinctions between the elites and the lower classes. So some of the key uh, social dynamics that we observe within Greco-Roman tradition is that we see this patron-client system. So social relationships were strictly hierarchical, with patrons providing resources and the clients offering loyalty and service. So this structure influenced the way that Christian communities functioned, particularly in their mutual aid and fellowship. And then, of course, we also see slavery and economy being a part of this social dynamic, where a large portion of this population was enslaved or in some form of servitude to um, to these elites, which shaped Christianity's appeal to the lower classes and enslaved persons playing a role in its expansion. So, obviously, if we look at the Bible, especially in the New Testament, a lot of what we see is talk of freedom and reform of societal norms. Um, and we do see some other things within that, but that's for another lecture. Um, and then of course we see this uh, social dynamic surrounding gender and family life. So women obviously had limited public roles. However, they were very active within early Christianity. Hello, Gage. Um, where they served as patrons and leaders in house churches. So we see that um, although women didn't have a public role or have a public influence, they were quite active within the early Christian context. So Christianity's emphasis on spiritual equality and communal support were countercultural, but also extremely attractive to those who were marginalized within Roman society. So, what aspects of early Christian community life might have made it appealing to those living on the fringes of society? So, obviously, we see that. I lost my train of thought. We see that emphasis on spiritual equality in the Pauline epistles. He says there's neither Jew nor Greek, nor male nor female. So we see this, nor slave nor free. So we see this spiritual equality happening, which was certainly countercultural for Roman society. So the Greco-Roman world provided many challenges as well as opportunities for early Christianity. The political stability of the empire, when combined with religious pluralism and social stratification, um, created a context in which Christianity could spread quite rapidly despite opposition. So, like I said earlier in the lecture, um, in the Greco-Roman world, people practice multiple different religions without having any contradiction. So we see that most likely there were people who practiced early Christianity but may have held their ties to um, one of the one of the gods within the Roman pantheon or the Greek pantheon. So Um, Even despite this opposition, and we do see historic opposition to Christianity, despite that opposition, Christianity was within a context that it could spread quite rapidly. So, just a couple of questions before we kind of uh, fizzle out this lecture. It was not nearly as long as some of the other ones. But how does the understanding of the Greco Roman world change our reading of the New Testament? Well, I would say that instead of taking a fundamentalist view of Scripture um, and looking at it academically, there are a lot of ideologies that we see being pulled from Greco Roman culture that influence Christianity. So, and then, of course, what lessons can the modern church learn from how early Christians navigated their cultural environment? So this is an interesting question for me, anyways. Obviously, the modern church has a lot of issues. Um, there is a lot of bias. There is a lot of um, conflict between denominations. There's a lot of disunity, but we see that these modern Christian church or these uh, early Christians didn't have nearly as much of that as we do now. So, does anyone care to contemplate, or if you have a direct answer, you're more than welcome to answer. But does anybody want to contemplate those last two questions? Oh, for some reason I thought Nick was still up here. I don't even know why.
Well, I dropped so you could get back to the lecture. I'm sorry.
I just kind of assumed you were already up here, I guess.
Oh, got you.
But
Um, specifically, a lot of what I see the heavy influence of Roman Greco culture within, especially the Hellenization of Judaism when it comes to Christianity, is thoughts of the afterlife, i.e., heaven and hell, which wasn't a concept in, the uh, Judaism Israelite notion. All that was really ever talked about was Sheol, different levels of being raised from the dead. It wasn't until the book of Daniel when you start to see uh, actual talk of the afterlife and such, and that is only after the Hellenization of the Israelite nation had already started to happen. So that for me is the biggest sticking out point. It's almost like it was adopting from other cultures and belief systems and tying it into their own.
right, which we can see a lot of even within modern Christianity, like the idea of um, Christmas being on December 25th. We see that that was a method to usurp pagan tradition, and what the Pope did at that time was, well, if you guys become Christian, we'll let you keep your traditions, but you have to conform your traditions to our belief system. So we see a lot of that pulling from uh, other religions, because Christianity was never something that was formulated on its own. Um, I have told many, many people that Jesus was not a Christian, Jesus was Jewish. So Jesus's understanding of religion uh, would have been in a Jewish context rather than a Christian context.
Right.
We see that uh, Christianity didn't appear until much later, uh, there was quite the expanse of time between the death of Christ and the formation of early Christianity. Of course, there was proto-Christianity, which was um, somewhere in between Judaism and Christianity, where we see that Jewish people um, are starting to lean more towards this idea of Christ being the Messiah. So we see this kind of uh, religious overlap, if you will. That may not be the best phrase, but this religious overlap where we see um, the apostles who were Jewish um, falling more in line with this idea that Christ is the Messiah. And of course, just a disclaimer, I am a Christian. I do believe that Jesus Christ is the Messiah, but again, we're speaking from a purely academic viewpoint. So um, that's why I'm leaving it kind of in the gray area. So we also see this idea that Christianity was understood to be part of these mystery cults. Um, and cult not meaning, people going together in a house and drinking the unaliving fruit punch, but cult as in a group of people who do not belong to um, a larger religion. So, or smaller, more orthodox practices within the Greco Roman religious tradition. So, scholars in the early part of the 20th century were really struck by how similar the ancient descriptions of the mysteries were to what we know about Christianity, because it was a secretive society whose members worshipped a divine being who died and then was raised from the dead and who could bring peace on earth and eternal life after death. Initiates into the society went through a period of ritual purification, also known as baptism, and instruction, of course, and members, according to this view, periodically celebrated the myths of the cult's beginning, which we see in the Lord's Supper. So recent scholarship, however, has been less inclined to call Christianity a mystery cult or to claim that it simply borrowed its characteristic ideas and practices from previously existing religions. In part, this is because we don't know very much about what happened during these mystery rituals, um, especially in the time period which in which Christianity began. For example, did initiates typically take part of a meal commemorating the death of their Savior God? Uh, a lot of scholars really just aren't sure. All the same, these parallels between Christianity and these other religions do remain quite intriguing, especially for scholars such as myself. Um, and then, of course, maybe the question that scholars should have posed uh, was, would non-Christian outsiders have looked on Christianity as a kind of mystery cult analogous to uh, the others that they knew of during that time? So I would say that if someone from that era were to walk into a modern cathedral during a mass, um, they would probably assume we were some form of pagan, um, because from an outsider looking in, um, let's uh, you know close your eyes, if you will, and imagine yourself as an early Greco-Roman, and picture yourself walking into a a solemn high pontifical mass, which is um, incense, candles, chanting, um, and not so long ago, it was done entirely in Latin, specifically ecclesiastical Latin, which would not have been understood by Romans because it is not traditional spoken Latin. Um, so picture yourself walking into this giant building with these beautiful stained glass windows, and the first thing you see and smell is incense and candles. And then there's this guy up here in these, you know, pretty gold embroidered robes. Your first thought is not going to be Christianity. Your first thought would be, oh, this must be some kind of temple of some sort, and the guy in the fancy robes must be a pagan priest of some kind. So we have to understand that the way that Christianity would have been viewed is vastly different from how it is viewed now. Obviously, Christianity is very um, recognizable now for the most part. So even as a modern Norse pagan, Nick could walk to a cathedral and go, "Oh, these are Christians." However, at that time, because there were so many similarities, um, that wouldn't have been the case. So um, I am going to give you guys a couple of scenarios, and I'd like to see a discussion happen. I think this would be really great. So our first scenario is, and we're going to take a little trip on the imagination train, I guess. Um, Suppose Christianity had never been born and the Western world remained pagan. Um, what do you guys think would have been some of the main ways our world would be different? And what would possibly be different about your own life? And then, of course, try to be as concrete as possible. Obviously, this is a hypothetical situation, so I don't expect um, perfect answers.
Well, for one thing, there would be more Jews.
Yeah, absolutely. Because then there wouldn't have been, you know, um, the Crusades and the Inquisition.
Hmm.
Um, so there would definitely be more Jewish people running around the earth.
I don't have exact dates offhand. I'd have to go and find the specific notebook out of my 2000 notebooks. But, even at a certain point, we start seeing different pagan cultures start to create trade routes with one another and treaties. And we saw them trying to work towards common goals and in essence, peace. It wasn't so much about raiding and pillaging one another or stealing from each other anymore. It was about creating alliances in which all parties involved could cohabit peacefully, but and still survive. We were starting to see the end of a very brutal area going into collective groupings of different pagans with different gods working together for the betterment of humanity, because even today in paganism, that's something that we work towards, is the betterment of this world, our people, and the future for our next generations. um However, with Christianity, what we saw was the need for dominion and ego, power hungry Rome taking over one nation after another, after another, after another. And then even after that, Christianity still pushed into the Western world and mass genociding countless numbers of indigenous people all the way up to 1996, right? So, they were I think we would see a balance. I've said a lot in my lives, if people went back to their pagan roots and heritage, their pagan gods, and honored the ancestors, then just pick one world religion that's done terrifying things, we would probably start to see this balance, and we would start to see human nature, the better part of human nature, and starting to thrive, because we wouldn't be living for some god or some promised afterlife. We would be all living for the now and our fellow humanity. That's my take. Professor Pat, hi. Um, yeah.
Food at the same time. But my answer is actually going to kind of be similar in the way that I think that um, we would see a lot more people that understood their roots and their ancestral gods and would have more of a focus on those gods versus this one. I'm not sure that, we can say 100% that there wouldn't be another religion that would, um, have taken people away from their original gods and goddesses. But I don't think it would be definitely to the degree that it is today.
World unification, honestly.
So, on to the next question here. I want you all to pretend that you're a pagan, living in the Roman world. Well, some of you guys don't have to pretend. Um, but in this instance, pretend that you're a pagan living in the Roman world who wants to show why Christianity is an inferior religion. Argue your case.
No, I like you.
No, this is purely academic, guys. You're not going to offend me. This is not, I'm not proposing a debate. I just want this to be thought about, because this is important to how the world understands Christianity, and even more so early Christianity. So, um, Nick, if you don't really feel comfortable, you don't have to. Of course, I don't
I
coerce
just don't
anyone.
want to offend you in
You're
any
not going to
way.
offend me. I promise you, you're not going to offend me. You might offend other people, but I'm not the one who's going to be offended.
He said he
Um,
promises, so I'll hold him to that promise.
So, in the pagan world, our gods are very much human, very much alive. Um, they come to us in different forms, such as Odin comes with the ravens, and you never know when they're just gonna appear. If kind of like randomly an old man comes up to you and starts talking to you and has kind of a sly grin, you'll walk away wondering if it was Odin, right? So that's kind of how it is within Norse paganism. Our gods are very much alive, they're very much here, they're very much present. And whereas being a pagan back in Roman times, it really would be the narrative that I would push is what kind of inferior god is killed like that, or unalive like that, sorry. And then ceases to just exist on Earth. That's not something that we would, um, oh, what's the word? That's not something that we would, no, brain's shutting down. Crap. Sorry, it's been a long day. It's not something that we would follow. Um, you know, I would assume being a pagan in Rome I would probably be, I think, well versed in different religions in the area I'm residing because there's so much of it. The culture is so complex and varied, and you know, um, I would go back to, well, what made him the Messiah? Because he said so. Because we have other preachers over here that are saying the same thing. Type, you know, basically, why? How could a God screw up? An almighty powerful God screw up so badly that he has to send himself to unalive. It doesn't make sense to a pagan at all. And I think that's kind of the argument against this Jesus character we would have is well, gods can't die and your God obviously did. Um so yeah.
Liz, you've been awfully quiet. Do you want to participate in the discussion?
Can you remind me again what exactly your question was? I want to make sure that.
Yeah, of course. So pretend that you are a pagan living in the Roman world who wants to show why Christianity is an inferior religion. And I want you to argue your case. And like I said, you're not going to offend me. This is purely academic. So these are good exercises. So,
I mean,
um,
I think it would kind of be, like what we do on lives when we're on lives, right? Like the topics that we bring up, pointing out like the contradictions within the book, the contradictions with, well, at the time, I don't know how much we would have known about, like science, how the body works, etc. Um, all of the atrocities and how you can, I guess, have that internal struggle of, uh, do I still follow this? Do I still believe it? Even though I see all these things in there that I don't agree with on a human level. I think it would be really similar to what we do on lives every week, honestly. But I'm a very like, I am somebody who is data, statistics, and facts. So to me, those are the most convincing arguments. But at the same time, I have no idea what it would have been like at the time. But today, I notice a lot of the things that convince a lot of the Christians that we talk to are not the data, the science, and the facts. It's the exact opposite. It's I can't explain this, so I'm going to insert this. And even when presented with facts, um, a lot of the times they just don't seem to understand it. Some do. But as you had mentioned the other day, a lot of Christians don't seem to want to educate themselves on their own religion, but I think it's more than just their own religion. I think it's just a lack of education in a lot of areas. Um, and with that lack of education, they have the need and the want for an answer, but instead of, going through the steps of finding, an answer that we can explain in the human world, they go to one that can't be explained.
Are we talking about pre-Bible or post-Bible, Father Mark?
pre-Bible. So this is early
Oh,
Christianity,
okay.
um, presupposing uh, that this was a not as common uh, religious tradition. So Christianity at this time was just beginning as a religion. So the point of that exercise is critical thinking. So we're putting ourselves in the shoes of a pagan within the Roman world, um, within the antiquity. So this isn't something that's being compared to modern Christianity. This is you're a pagan, so think I don't know, a worshiper of um, and then of course my Roman mythology goes completely out the door. Maybe I can try Greek. Athena. So let's say you're a follower of Athena, um, and Christianity is just becoming uh, a thing. So what would your response to be? What would your response as a pagan or a follower of Athena be to a Christian um, if you were to explain to said Christian why um, their religion is inferior?
Probably because at that time it was so small, cultish, um, wouldn't have mattered, insignificant in the eyes of the old gods. That probably would have been my general attitude.
Can I point out, Nick? I find it really interesting that that is like the words that you chose because I know you know very well that we have Christians that come into our lives and specifically say that the reason that, or one of the reasons that their religion is true is because of the popularity.
Yeah,
So it kind of ironic in a way, honestly.
it is. The way I'm trying to describe it, though, is more ancestral than it is. Oh my god, Athena's got like 2,000 followers. She's like so popular. You know, it's not so much like the Christians, but it differs because it is the ancestral base. It is the gods that we've been worshiping for thousands of years. Their images are their images alone, you know.
I think what she's
Probably
trying to
with
say is that the worldview at that time would have been primarily through a pagan lens. So we're not viewing the world through the lens of Christianity. We're viewing the world through the lens of paganism. So
the
I would,
pagans had just as much supremacy, um,
right.
as Christians do. A lot of pagans don't seem to think so, but they were. They, we have the true gods.
No, for sure. The moment that you started saying that, like my ears perked up and I was like, oh, this sounds really familiar.
Yeah, but you know, pagans could laugh it off with each other about it, though. Christians, you can't.
Do you think that they could at that time?
No, no, not with the Christians, not with smaller cultish type groups. Um Single god belief systems probably would have been laughed at and jeered, to be honest. It's even when I was a Christian, I kind of had it was weird to me that we got all these other religions that are very much polytheistic, but we're supposed to believe that one masculine god did it all.
Hey, Professor Pat, if you want to contribute, you're more than welcome to come up. I did read your profile a little bit, so I see that you're a historian and an archaeologist. So I would really value your insight, as I am neither. I am just a seminary professor. So,
I took one
um,
of Professor Pat's classes actually.
oh,
Yeah.
well. he's more than welcome to come up and contribute if he feels comfortable doing so. I have no problem with that. He said his argument would be that Christianity offered nothing new in comparison to paganism. So that would be his argument as a Roman pagan, that Christianity wasn't offering anything different from the major religious views of that time.
I
All right,
mean,
guys, here comes the scary part. We're gonna flip the tables now. This may be
oof.
difficult for you to do. Now, I want you to pretend that you're a Christian living in the Roman world who wants to show why Christianity is superior to any of the pagan religions. Ready, set, go. Think evangelicals who come into your life.
Please, Nick, don't fight. And we can share, okay? We can both have time.
Okay, let me see if I can remember how to do this. Oh.
About spit out my drink when you said
It's been a lot of years. Holy shit.
your KJV really quick and just like stare into it. Maybe that'll help.
Stare into it, and maybe the Holy Spirit, the holy demon will come back to me and I'll start speaking in tongues again. And okay. Here's the I don't know. Back then, I don't know. Today, I could do it in a heartbeat. But back then, Christianity was so small. And trying to sell the idea of there is only but one God, and he sent his son to unalive for all of us. I don't know how you would even sell that back then, to be honest. Unless if you made it political. The New Testament reads like a political book. And so, I think to really boost up Christianity and talk it up in its superiority and be able to have people listen, I would turn it into a political movement. The ability to quotation mark unite religions together, the merging of Judaism with Hellenization under one common God, one common purpose, one common rule. Honestly, that would be the route I would have taken. Yeah, I don't know. Today, I could go off on an evangelistic rant. Like, absolutely, I could sit here and proselytize until the cows come home. But back then, it would have been a lot more difficult because it was a pagan world. And that's why I say would have to go the political route to push the narratives of superiority.
Well, you can ask all the Crusaders that. How did that work out for them? The Templars, they wiped them out. You know why they wiped them out? They were getting too powerful. Governments wiped them out. But here's the deal. I mean, if you guys want to be religious, we're all under God, indivisible. And the great scriptures, Revelations 21:4. So he shall wipe all the tears from their eyes. There will be no more war, no more pain, no more sorrow. For he had wiped
if you guys truly were indivisible, then why do you have over 40,000 denominations, each with a different doctrine?
No, the thing is, you can't pick on anybody believing in God. They all got God in their heart. It's how they celebrate God and how they worship God. You don't pick on another religion because they have faith. That you should be more happier than anything to see somebody from another religion that they believe in God. That makes them the same rules, same exact rules.
Sam Elliott, is that you?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I thought so. Big fan, by the way. I love the ranch.
Oh, I love the ranch. I miss
The
the
ranch
ranch.
was awesome. Yeah.
But yeah, that's me. Yeah, I'm on my brother's account.
Yeah.
But
You're oh.
I really believe y'all. I really believe in faith. How about that? Let's not talk about God. Let's talk about faith. Faith, believing. And I believe in my brothers and sisters here on earth. I believe in you all so much. I trust in you all to do because I'll do everything for you all. And that's me. That's what I do. And I got mud and blood on my boots. And I have a sword in my hand if I need to. Yeah. I think it's important that people understand it don't matter what God you believe into, but you're still believing in the same words. Yeah.
Amen, brother. Hallelujah. Thank you for coming up and preaching a good word. We hope you have a great evening, bro.
Thank you, Nick.
I didn't know Sam Elliott had a brother.
All right. So just to reiterate, the question was, pretend that you're a Christian living in the Roman world who wants to show why Christianity is superior to any of the pagan religions. Argue your case.
See, if this was pre-Bible, it's so hard to argue the case without it. You'd really, really have to push the Israelite religion, push the Israelite narrative, but tell them, behold, the Messiah did come, and this the things he did.
Well,
And I
that's
am well aware that I'm making you guys do mental gymnastics, but if I have to do them daily, you guys have to do them every once in a while. Welcome to life.
normally we're just the ones listening to it. I think I would agree. Like I would probably lean on the, promises made. That's really the only.
I think Professor Pat is going to come up. He said, "Let me go somewhere where I can talk." So, um, I'm really interested to hear his insight. He sounds like a really great teacher. So, I'm interested to hear what he has to say on this little mental gymnastics exercise that we're doing. Um, Also, if you guys want book suggestions, I'm going to start posting book suggestions in the Discord uh, that you guys can check out. That are just some suggestions for further reading. Oh, I got somebody. Here we go. Hi, Professor Pat. How are you? Welcome. And I'm very excited to hear your insight on this.
Well, just Pat. Yeah, not at work. I guess if I wasn't, and also I guess we'd have to talk about which period of time we're talking about, but in general, I would probably say if I was an early Christian, I would make the argument that Christianity was open regardless of class, gender, or ethne, what basically cultural group you came from. And I also probably argue also is open to slaves, which was usually a problematic social standing in Roman society. My second argument would be how, particularly by the second, third century, aestheticism was, had very many Epicurean philosophical structures to it as far as the, denial of worldly pleasures. And that would be one of the, you could rely on a lot of bit of Greek philosophy to support that being a higher spiritual place as far as a person going back all the way to Aristotle. That's probably what I would argue. Or not.
Right. No, I think that's a really good response. Now, um, like I said earlier, of course, these are just to make people's brains hurt at this point. Not purposely, but it gets us thinking when it comes to early Christian tradition um, and how the Greco-Roman world impacted those traditions. So yes, I very much appreciate your insight. Um, am I don't think I'm following you. Now I am. Wonderful. So yeah, so that's the end of the lecture. I know that was a lot shorter than like the lecture I did on the Johannine epistles or the Gospel of St. John. Um, but there is much more uh, that could be discussed if we wanted to, but that's up to the panel and those of you who are my distinguished guests. So,
I can discuss until my siblings get here.
sure, it's
We're
up
do-
to
my, it's my son's 16th today. He's upstairs resting. But
well.
we're just waiting for them to come over.
Happy birthday to him. I hope his 16th year of existence is a good one.
Oh, me too. It can only get better, right? Right? Nah, he's a great kid. Don't get me wrong, but the last uh, 10 years of his life haven't been so great. So, but yeah, no, I'm up for discussion until they all get here.
Join, I guess I could do that. I can't very well. See if I can get away with this. So, yeah, that is the end of the lecture there. Um, if you guys want, I'm sure at some point I'll have another lecture once I dig through my notes and pull another one out. Um, but as always, you guys are more than welcome to attend and learn. And if you guys have any questions, obviously, you can message me. Um, but yeah, so thank you all for
Well,
participating and letting me rack your brains.
well, I don't know. Maybe for next time, I'd like to hear, and not right now, but I'd like to hear maybe some discussion on both with like in the gospel accounts, the parallels that are found in earlier Greco-Roman literature. For example, like the wedding at Cana, how many Christians think that was like a unique occurrence, right? And then it had been previously represented in, cult works and literature related to the god Dionysus as far as, and so I'm curious to see how how he'd wrestle with that and like the whole concept of mimesis in early Christian literature from other pagan writings that predate it.
Ooh, good topic.
That is a good topic. I'm not sure that I have a lecture that addresses that directly, but that doesn't mean I can't put one together. So, um, absolutely, that sounds like a really great lecture topic.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to do it off the cuff myself either on the on either side of it. So yeah, I follow Nick, so I'm giving you a follow right now. Yeah, if you want to send me a message before you do it, I think we could have an interesting conversation about it.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds like it would be a fun one because there's other ones. Even right down to the names of his followers and their story plots, like Judas, comes from other workings as well. So that would be a very curious lecture slash discussion to have.
Yeah, I think it'd be fun. I mean, and not that it didn't happen just inside Christianity. I mean, we also know that other Greco-Roman literature emulated earlier Greco-Roman traditions, so it's not like it was unique. It was part of the genre of the time.
Right, right.
Absolutely. Well, as they say on Looney Tunes, that's all, folks.
Okay.
So, um, obviously, I'm open to if you guys just want to hang out and chit chat. Um, that's perfectly fine with me. However, that is the oh, great Peck. He finally got his rigatoni, guys. Um,
Honestly, that really kind of
So,
rounds out the lecture.
right.
Father Mark, what part of the country are you in, or what country are you in? I should probably start with.
The United States
Okay. So
in
my
the not so great state of Florida.
okay. I'm in Washington, the state, so we couldn't be further apart, unless I was in Alaska. Sweet, or actually Hawaii, I guess technically. Yeah.
So, as much as I want to stick around and converse with you guys, pick your brains, the sister just got here, so I do have to go. But thanks for the talks and the lecture, Father Mark. I appreciate it, and we'll catch you guys later. Professor Pat, it was really good seeing you today.
Nick, it's just Pat, but thanks. Yeah, I'll see you around.
He did that in class too. It's just Pat. All right, see you again.
All right.
Tell Shanice hi.
I will.
Right. It looks like my group of colleagues is expanding quite rapidly. I'm friends with two rabbis and now a history professor. So,
We'll
um,
get you more people. Don't worry.
uh, the realm of colleagues is growing, which I'm excited about. But I too am going to close out. So,
All right.
unless anyone else has any points they'd like to make, um, I think that concludes this session of Christian mental gymnastics.
Okay. That sounds good.
You should have told us that we needed to stretch beforehand, Father Mark.
But that would have given you the advantage, and that's not fair. No, is it?
Good point. Good point.
As a priest, I never get the advantage. I don't get to mentally stretch before having to do these gymnastics.
That's fair.
But
That's
that's
fair.
true. Well, take care, everyone. It was nice meeting you all.
You
All right.
too. Have a good
Take
night, Father Mark.
You two take care, guys. Be good. Empower yourselves and better the world.